Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jala Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mahavishya Savitam Yeva Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Nalavisha Adaptikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamcha Shri Rupam Sadanam Saganadatam Vitam Saditam Advaitam Sarvarutam Purishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganalalitam Shri Shakaditam Sa Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Niramandu Yadapare Om Krishna Om Yasanta Saranamna Namostute Sakakantana Ramki No one else brave enough? Padyam vimiryayo drashtum Bhavamya Sachamudyayati samyam Mukunda charanam bhujam. Let's just do the translation. I want to go through this because there's not much purpose in these verses. There's no purpose to this verse. Translation. Rukmini silently went out on foot to see the lotus feet of the deity, Bhavani, accompanied by her mother and girlfriends and protected by the king's valiant soldiers who held their upraised weapons at the ready. She simply absorbed her mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, and all the while, Mridanga, conch shells, panavas, horns, and other instruments resounded. Okay, next. No purport. I'm not going to do the Sanskrit. Behind the bride followed the thousands of prominent courtesans, bearing various gifts, offerings, and presents. along with well-adorned Brahmins' wives, singing and reciting prayers and bearing gifts of garlands, scents, clothing. There were also professional singers, musicians, bards, and chroniclers, and heralds. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explained that from her own quarters up to the temple of Bhavani, Rukmini went by plankway and thus was easily protected. Only for the last 12 to 15 feet from the area did she go on foot, with royal bodyguards stationed outside the temple on all sides. She was treated like a queen. And she was. Okay, next verse. Upon reaching the goddess's temple, Rukmini first washed her lotus feet and hands and then sipped water for purification. Thus sanctified and peaceful, she came into the presence of Mother Ambika. Next verse. The older wives of Brahmins, expert in the knowledge of rituals, and led young Rukmini in offering respects to Bhavani, who appeared with her consort, Lord Baba. Purport. According to the acharyas here, the term Bhavantikam indicates that the Ambika temple visited by Rukmini in the temple, the presiding deity was a goddess whose husband appeared in an accompanying role. Thus the ritual was properly performed by women. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the term Vidi Vidya may be understood to mean that since the learned wives of the Brahmins knew of Rukmini's desire to marry Krishna, the verb Vadanya Chakru thus indicates that they prompted her to pray for what she really wanted. In this way, like the goddess Bhavani, Rukmini could be united with her eternal companion. Next verse. Princess Rukmini prayed, O Ambika, wife of Lord Shiva, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you. Together with your children, may Lord Krishna become my husband. Please grant me this. So she gets right to the point. Next verse. No translation, no purport. Rukmini worshipped the goddess with water, scents, whole grains, incense, clothing, garlands, necklaces, jewelry, and other prescribed offerings and gifts, and also with the rays of lamps. The married Brahmin women each performed worship simultaneously with the same items, also offering savories and cake, prepared betel nut, sacred threads, fruits, and sugarcane juice. No purport. Next verse. The ladies gave the bride the remnants of the offerings and then blessed her. She in turn bowed down to them and the deity and accepted the remnants of the prasada. No purport. Next verse. The princess then gave up her vow of silence and left the Ambika temple, holding on to a maidservant with her hand, which was adorned with jeweled rings. Next verse is no purport. There is a purport for this one. Okay, the long verses are put together. Translation. Rukmini appeared as enchanting as the Lord's illusory potency, who enchants even the sober and grave. Thus the kings gazed upon her virgin beauty, her shapely waist, and her lovely face, adorned with earrings. Her hips were graced with a jewel-studded belt. Her breasts were just budding, and her eyes seemed apprehensive of her encroaching locks of hair. She smiled sweetly, her jasmine-budded teeth reflecting the glow of her bimba red lips. As she walked with the motion of a royal swan, the effulgence of her tinkling ankle bells beautified her feet. Seeing her, the assembled heroes were totally bewildered. Lust tore at their hearts. Indeed, when the kings saw her broad smile and shy glance, they became stupefied dropping their weapons and fell unconscious to the ground from their elephants, chariots, and horses. On the pretext of the procession, Rukmini displayed her beauty for Krishna alone. Slowly she advanced, the two moving lotus whirls of her feet, waiting for the arrival of the Supreme Lord. With the fingernail of her left hand, she pushed some threads of hair away from her face, and shyly looked from the corners of her eyes at the king standing before her. At that moment she saw Krishna. Then, while his enemies looked on, the Lord seized the princess who was eager to mount his chariot. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai.
Report, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, Rukmini was anxious that her locks of hair might impede her vision, since she was most eager to see her beloved Krishna. The non-devotees or demons are bewildered at seeing the opulence of the Lord, and they think that his potency is meant for their gross sense gratification. But Rukmini, as explained, as an expansion of Krishna's internal pleasure potency, was meant. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following verse to describe the kind of women known as Shyama. A woman is called Shyama when her breasts are very firm and when someone in her presence feels warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Nice description. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further points out that since the beautiful form of Rukmini is a manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, the non-devotees cannot perceive her. Thus the heroic kings assembled in Vidarbha were agitated with lust upon seeing the Lord's illusory potency and expansion of Rukmini. In other words, no one can lust after the Lord's eternal concert, since as soon as one's mind is contaminated with lust, the covering of Maya separates one from the pristine beauty of the spiritual world and its inhabitants. So that's an important point. This question came up recently about how Sita could be kidnapped by Ravana. But the real Sita was never kidnapped. This was the Maya Sita. So similarly, they couldn't see Rukmini actually. But still they were bewildered by lust. Finally, Srimati Rukmini felt shy as she looked from the corner of her eyes at the other king, for she did not want to meet the glance of these inferior men. Lifting the princess onto his chariot, whose flag bore the emblem of Garuda, Lord Madhava drove back the circle of kings, while Balaram in the lead, with Balaram in the lead, he slowly exited like a lion, removing his prey in the midst of jackals. Next verse. The kings inimical to the Lord, headed by Jarasandha, could not tolerate this humiliating defeat. They exclaimed, "Oh, damn us! Though we are mighty archers, mere cowards have stolen our honor, just as puny animals might steal the honor of lions." Report. From the two verses of this chapter, it is clear that the perverted intelligence of demons makes them perceive things in a way exactly opposite to reality. It is clearly stated here that Krishna stole Rukmini like a lion taking prey from the midst of the jackals. The demons, however, saw themselves as lions and Lord Krishna as an inferior creature. Without Krishna consciousness, life becomes most dangerous. Thus ends the purport of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 53rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini. So I wanted to speak now a little bit about what the demons were troubled by. But then I can't read the book. This enemy, if we read chapter 3, text 37, Shri Bhagavan Ujjhā, this is Bhagavad Shri Bhagavan Ujjhā, Kama Esha Karore Esha Rajaguna Samudhavaha Mahasano Mahapatma Viyenam Yavarninam Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." So everyone is here in this world because we're lusty. And this is the demoniac quality. So we should accept that and be humble and not so proud that we think we've conquered lust. It's not so easy to conquer lust. Krishna, Prabhupada is saying here in Krishna, that is the great sinful enemy, not easy to overcome. But I want to read a little bit more in this purported chapter where Krishna is giving us, and Prabhupada is giving us the remedy for this lust. Purport: when the living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues in material existence of the living entity. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in this material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves in wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So this is our process. We're trying to change lust into love. They're very similar, but there's also a vast difference between lust and love. He gives the example of gold and iron. They're both metal. One is very pure, very fine, and the other is coarse. So this lust is disturbing us since time immemorial. Nobody could say he's free from lust. Or free from, you can say, envy. Here we see their envy. They're so blinded by their lust that they are envious of Krishna. Who is this coward boy stealing our princess? So, envy. Sometimes God says, if you find somebody who is completely free from envy, you can worship them. But that we saw in Srila Prabhupada. He was completely transcendental and therefore so extraordinary. We were very inspired. The reading this morning of Prabhupada's poem when he came to America. This is the mood of the pure devotee. He sees himself as not qualified because of his being fallen. So Srila Prabhupada was certainly free from lust. He certainly wasn't fallen. He's taking our position. He's teaching us by his example how we have to be humble to approach the Lord. As soon as we're a little proud of our position, then the vision of the Lord is removed from us. So we have to, you could say, focus on this point of being free from lust. So again, the best way is to turn it into love. So how do we do that? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has kindly given us the formula. Harinam, 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 Kevalam, Kalua, Yes, this is the process. We can change this lust into love if we take this chanting very seriously. It means we have to do it regularly. We should rise early in the morning, Prabhupada says. Come to Mangalarti. That's the best time to make spiritual advancement, in the morning. The materialists are sleeping. That verse is there. The time for awakening is there for the self-realized souls, and the others are sleeping at that time. Brahma Muhurta hour. Everybody's sleeping. So it's a good time for us to make spiritual progress. So this is the process. We're advised here in this chapter, in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that we have to follow the regulated principles in order to get free from this lust. So the rules have been made easy. Srila Prabhupada said, I'm only asking you to give up poison. What is that poison? Yeah, illicit sex is poison. Your mind is making plans, and you're not there in the now, or you're not able to be Krishna conscious because you're making sinful plans. Intoxication everybody knows it's a poison. Meat eating is poison, getting colon cancer. So Prabhupada said, I'm only asking you to give up poison. What is the difficulty? But we since time immemorial, we've taken this as our happiness. Like one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, he was Swami Ban. He approached the one lord in England approached him and said, can I become a Brahmin? And his response was given, yes, you have to follow these four regular principles. Then hearing that, the Lord, whoever he was, high up, Britishman, he said, oh, that's impossible. So it seems impossible. But in association, and by taking it step by step, we can gradually overcome this lust and turn it into love. Again, we have to be patient, because Swami advises enthusiastic. We take the chanting enthusiastically, otherwise we'll be enthusiastic for sex life. It's our choice. But if we decide we want to be enthusiastic for spiritual life, then we become enthusiastic in the Kirtan or in our japa. We're listening very enthusiastically to our own japa. Enthusiasm, once Prabhupada said, this whole movement spread on enthusiasm. He was talking about his enthusiasm. He was so enthusiastic. Everything he was doing was full of enthusiasm. So we have to chant with enthusiasm. And then patience. What does Rupa Goswami say? The next item is patience. Enthusiastic and then patient. We can't demand Krishna, remove my lust. No. We have to want Krishna more than our own self. Then the lust will go away. Otherwise, there's no secret formula. It's open for everyone. Just put Krishna in the center, and then you can give up this madness of trying to enjoy the material energy. Woman is trying to enjoy the man. Man is trying to enjoy the woman. This is the binding principle. We all know that. So it can be overcome only by getting a higher taste. And the higher taste is easily available by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada through this chanting Hare Krishna. Not very difficult, but we have to take it regularly with enthusiasm and the best time of the day. We give quality time. Otherwise, the quality time will go to other things, making money or whatever that we're all engaged in. So this much austerity is there. Not a very severe austerity. We don't have to go like Dhruva Maharaj, stand on one leg, eat only leaves and so on. But some austerity is required. Otherwise, the natural position, since time immemorial, is love. We want to enjoy. We put ourselves in the center. So some austerity is required. And Prabhupada has made it easy also by giving us this international society where we can associate. I see coming in, I feel very enlivened. Now, in your city of Brussels. So, if it wasn't, that Srila Prabhupada took so much trouble, if he didn't take so much trouble to create this society, and it was a headache. Once we were in Hong Kong, and there was only 7 or 8 men at the time. Actually, there were only 3 of us, but some devotees came from the Philippines. So one of those devotees his name was Sudama Vipa. He was sannyas, and he was a disciple of Siddha Sarup before, and coming to ISKCON. So anyway, he was having some trouble, we heard. He was having some trouble. So Prabhupada was encouraging him. And he was asking to tell the story of how a difficult time he had when he was first in Mayapur, the first festival in Mayapur, Gauraparni time. There was nobody there. They just only had their kutir. There was no buildings there. There was 74 or 73. Before they had any buildings. 72. Okay, so 1973 we already had the land, but we didn't have any buildings. So he was staying in that kutir in the front, and that year there was a flood. So he was describing it to all of us, you know, how the water was coming, they were living in the rafters, there were snakes in the water, and so we were all appreciating and smiling. And then Prabhupada turned to me. What was your most difficult time in Krishna consciousness? He asked me. So I said, well, Prabhupada, when we were in Tokyo, it was so cold that we had this big house, you couldn't keep it warm. But we had one kerosene heater. If you stood in front of it, your front would get warm, but your back would be cold. So you had to turn around. You couldn't keep the whole room warm. So devotees were appreciating like that. Then I thought to ask you a problem. Maybe, so I shouldn't have, but I said, Srila, what was your most difficult time in Krishna consciousness? And we were all smiling, but suddenly, Prabhupada became as sober as a heart attack. Just, his whole demeanor changed. He became very grave, and he said, you don't want to know about that. And I thought, oh my God, just hearing about it would have killed him. So the point is, we think we could perform some little austerity, tolerating the cold or whatever. But Srila Prabhupada had to see so much difficulty to establish this movement. And without this movement, we wouldn't be able to maintain. That's a fact. At least for me. Maybe there may be some rare souls like Gorkashura Babaji who don't need a movement, they're just fixed on the holy name. But I need the association of devotees. I need the inspiration from seeing them enthusiastic in order to remain enthusiastic for myself. Otherwise, this is Maya's kingdom. The default position is Maya. We don't have to look for Maya. We're already in Maya. Like one devotee said to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, I don't like to go out because when I go out on the street, I always fall in Maya. It was summertime and I like to see the women are half naked and I get disturbed. Prabhupada said, fall in Maya? You're always Maya. Sometimes you fall in Krishna. And this is our position. We don't have to look for Maya. Everyone is lusty. Therefore, restriction is there. Especially sannyasis are not supposed to be alone with women. So these are to protect us. But of course, Madhavanapuri, we come to the highest stage, then we don't have to follow rules and regulations. But we can't imitate that. That stage, we can't practice that stage until the point of nishta. We have to pass through nishta. Then we come to the spontaneous stage of ruchi, the shakti, and bhava, and prema. So step by step, we can come to that. The Prabhupada is encouraging us, he's promising us that if we're able to maintain throughout the whole life, then he'll personally come and bring us. So the process is open, it's not that difficult, but we have to take it with determination and with enthusiasm and patience. Those are the three things Guru Goswami says, right? Who knows the Sanskrit?
Utsaham nishchayam dhyayat tat karma pravartanat.
So we have to also follow in the footsteps. But the first three I was thinking of, enthusiastic, patient, and confident or determined. That if we follow this path, we will be successful. We should have that faith that this is not a bogus movement, something, This is a very authorized, coming from Lord Chaitanya, coming from Lord Krishna, through Brahma, Parampara. So it's authorized, fully authorized. We just have to connect to it and keep that connection. And we will be able to keep that connection if we remain enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness, especially about our chanting, and if we remain patient. We can't demand Krishna, you have to give me yourself now. No, we have to be patient. In English we say, patience is the mother of all virtues. We were looking for the highest virtue. Being a devotee of Krishna is the highest position. But we have to be patient. And then, confident. Yes, I'm on this path. I'm not going to budge from this path, even for billions of dollars. I'm going to remain fixed in this process of sadhana bhakti until I reach the stage of raganuga, spontaneous love. And if we imitate that prematurely, then again we come back, we fall down. So it'll be clear to us when we're free from any material attachment. We don't have to wonder. I remember when I was first coming, we were in New Vrindavan in 1969, I was in Kenya. And one devotee was saying like that. Just, we're all good devotees. He was saying he thinks he's a gopi. And he started talking like that. And then sure, within a year he was gone. So we're imitating. We can't imitate that I'm a gopi, I'm a this or that. No, we should think, I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the gopi. That's okay. Or we can, don't worry about our rasa. It'll be revealed to us when we're qualified. That was Prabhupada's move. He didn't tell us what his rasa was. Because there are speculations. But the point is, don't worry about rasa until you're qualified. Then it'll become clear to you. It's like, if we're too preoccupied with our rasa, then it's not a good sign. It's just like a child. An 8-year-old boy is very eager to know about sex life. And you say, this is strange. He's not mature enough to. It's not a good sign. He's not mature. Why is he thinking about sex life? But we're not mature yet. Why are we thinking about rasa so much that we become sahaja and we leave the association? Then Prabhupada said that because he saw that in Los Angeles, there was a Gopi Baba Club who were only reading Prabhupada's books about the gopis and Krishna. But Prabhupada didn't approve. He told them, first of all, deserve, then desire. We have to deserve to enter into the conjugal loving affairs of the Lord before we can desire. I want that. Okay, I'll stop here. Any questions, comments? Speak too short on this question.
But you, in the verses you wrote about that the soldiers, these kings, they were so confused that they fell from their horses,
yeah.
and they dropped their weapons. So we never have seen anything like this before, I think, not my life. So can you a little bit explain it? Because this looks like a little bit, over...
exaggeration.
Some exaggeration is there in the story. Is this how we should accept it really that happened?
You can have, I think why not accept that it happened, but it doesn't mean that they remained in that state very long. Because it's still in the same verse, in the next verse, that they were standing and seeing it. So they must have, or maybe just, I don't like to use that word, maybe. So that's my opinion on that. We could research it further. Or Tata Vicky.
In the purport, we heard that Jiva Goswami explains it.
Mm-hmm.
He says that when you see the opulence of the Lord's internal energy personified, it's just bewildering for the mundane person, just totally bewildering. Because he thinks, I'll enjoy that. That's for me.
Yeah.
And then he'll just,
That's a good point, thank you.
he'll faint and he'll fall off a horse. Why not?
But the only question is that, because it seemed like a minute later, they were all standing and angry and they didn't drop, they had their weapons, they were ready to fight Krishna. So that's, it's a time thing. The time is, always a mystery. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Probably.
on.
Is it okay?
Hare Krishna. I'm just wondering if it's possible to get rid of lust as a grihastha, or do we have to take sannyas to reach that point?
To do what?
To get rid of lust?
Oh, no. If a vanaprastha is recommended, so vanaprastha means the couples remain together, but there's no sex life for some time. Why not? We get a higher taste, then we can give up sex life from any position. Just like our girl Bhavani here, she lost her husband recently. He left his body in Vrindavan, Bhagavati Khan, my dear brother. And she was taking care of him. I'm sure she wasn't lusting in those last months. Her husband was on his deathbed. So it doesn't mean that we have to be sannyas to be free from lust. That's the purport. Anyone else? Mataji Sahib? Okay. One question?
Sometimes I'm wondering, you have all kind of patience. Sometimes you need patience, but sometimes...
Mic is off.
Sometimes you don't need patience, but you always need to be in patience. They say that sometimes patience is not... you should not
because
use it.
when we're acting, then we're no longer patient. We're acting, but in a proper way. In other words, we can't demand that Krishna supply us. We have to wait patiently. So that's the move. And while we're waiting, we're serving. Not that we just become, stunned and just waiting. No, we're doing a service, but in the mood of patience. That, why am I serving? To please Krishna. And so, then I have to be patient to see whether Krishna is actually pleased. But they don't go, they're not exclusive, that because I'm patient, therefore I'm not doing anything. We're serving. But we're serving patiently.
How to stay enthusiastic?
How to stay enthusiastic?
One way is to be associating with people who are more enthusiastic. I'll give you an example. We were in Calcutta before the Mayapur meetings, and Prabhupada called me to his room, and he said, we just got a letter from a Mr. Gajah, who is the president of DuPont company, big company, chemical company, Indian man. He's in Taipei, Taiwan, and he wants to help us financially to start a center. So I want you to go, take a few men, and open a center there. So I thought, oh my God, Chinese. I knew the Chinese from America, and they were, I'll just put it this way. Never saw any Chinese hippies. They weren't, hippies were burning money and just doing wild things. Chinese were always very serious about, running their laundry business or whatever. We used to joke about it. So I was thinking, these people are the last people to take the Krishna consciousness, and I'm not very inspired. But by the time I left Prabhupada's room, I was full of enthusiasm, because Prabhupada was so enthusiastic to open a center in China, and that by the time I left, he made me enthusiastic. So this is the way we can remain enthusiastic, by associating with people who are more enthusiastic. And either we're enthusiastic for spreading Krishna consciousness, or for practicing Krishna consciousness, or we're enthusiastic for sex life, or some kind of, what's it, profit, adoration, distinction, what do you call it, some extension of sex life. That's our choice. If we associate with those who are Prabhupada told a story about I don't know how he learned the story, but Tom Sawyer, I think it was. And his father was assigned the responsibility to paint this fence that they had, white picket fence, right? Or whitewash it. So he was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do it today, Saturday, I want to be with my friends and play. So he devised a plan. He got a bunch of these paintbrushes and enough of the cans of the paint. And when his friends came, he was starting to paint. And he was very enthusiastic about it. And painting, you know. And his friends said, hey, I want to do that. Okay, here's another brush. And like this, he got all his friends to paint. Because he was so enthusiastic, they wanted to be happy like he was. So that's the nature of enthusiasm. You associate with people who are enthusiastic to preach and to serve, then it'll wear off on us. We'll also feel enthusiastic. Yes, sir.
Regarding patients, if I see the need for a service, but we need to cooperate, so how long to stretch that patience, and how to say, and follow the instruction of cooperating nicely.
Well, we're not miracle people, you know, we don't expect miracles. We're not utopians, so we try our best, and then we leave the result to Krishna. We try our best to cooperate, we try our best to get others to cooperate, but if it's not in our power to get them to cooperate, we have to realize our position. And sometimes we fail. But if our intention is there to please Krishna, then it's not a failure. But now, I'm losing patience because of the stupid machine. We have to tolerate it. Okay? Maybe we'll stop here. It's a sign from the geology that we talked about. Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhagavatam ki jai.
Holiness Vikram Swami Maharaj ki
Srila Prabhupada arriving in America in 1965 ki jai.